I think I'm live right now. Uh, good evening, good evening to everyone. Really nice having you guys online for this great occasion, this great live broadcast. I'm really happy to be here. I must confess, really happy to be here, where we'll talk about the way forward for Africa. The way forward for Africa. This is very important. This is very necessary that we do it. I want to first of all acknowledge or to thank the speakers who have been doing a great job for the past 5 days now. And I think I'm the sixth speaker. Just want to thank all of you who are so concerned about Africa and the going forward of Africa, the moving forward of Africa. I really want to thank you all. I don't actually intend to waste much time. I have about 111 slides. I'm just wondering how I'm going to do this because I have to do a very detailed research for this presentation. But however, I'm just going to try as much as I can to see how I can meet up with the presentation. All right, so I'm kicking off right away. Yet at some point, I may not. Okay, you'll be seeing me definitely, but at some point I may just have to do a full screen of what I'm presenting or what I'll be presenting tonight. All right, I'll be doing that. All right. The topic for tonight is simply the role of education in securing the future of Africa. The topic for tonight is the role of education in securing the future of Africa. That is the topic I was given by the host of this great program. But I have to do my own topic as well, to support the topic given to me by the host of the program. And that is what I refer to as the revamping of Africa's education in the Global Leadership League through quality and practical education. There's something I wanted to capture: quality and practical education. It's actually lacking in Africa greatly. All right, but before I do that, I think I would like to quickly um, introduce myself. Okay, my name is Chidiben. I want to thank God's Power Parago, the host of this program, for having me on his platform to also lend my voice in talking about the way forward for Africa. So I want to thank him so much for having me here. He is the the initiator of Initiative for African Citizens. Initiative for African Citizens. He's the initiator of this. All right, just not to waste your time, like I told you, my name is Chidiben. I'm actually privileged to be the management consultant of the Safety Management Leadership, Human Resource Management and Career organization here in Nigeria. If eventually you're listening to me from outside Nigeria or any part of Africa, I'm actually streaming from Nigeria in particular. All right, so to kick off on this, before I kick off precisely on this, there are three key focus that Africa must take serious, else it goes into extinction. Mark my words. There are three key things or three key focus that Africa must attend to, else it goes into extinction, even while it exists. What do I mean? Africa exists, but may go into extinction even while it exists if these three things are not given attention to. And that's culture, education, and industry. Culture, education, and industry. And you may ask why? Why these three major focus? Just hold on for me. You're going to get more details about this as we proceed. Okay. All right. So if you watch on the screen, you can see that I pointed to education as a key factor. Why did I do that? because development is the way forward for any nation. Development is the way forward for any continent. Development is the way forward for any family. Development is the way forward. Now, we have not gone into talking about how the development is charted, but the major thing here is the fact that development is the way forward for any country, any family, any continent. And there's a little, I know about development when it comes to the definition of development. Okay, one of the ways is the fact that development is a general upward increase. Take note of that word. Development is a general upward increase, which means if any country is not experiencing development in all facets, then that country cannot be said to have developed or have development quickly. All right, let's move on. All right, if you come down to this point, you are going to see that we have, all right, the concerns of the initiator of this program. Okay, the initiator of this program has some concerns which he shared with me. Okay, and what are these concerns of the initiator of the program? All right, let me just get it out quickly. All right, there are about 3 concerns he told me about, and I'm going to be sharing that with you quickly. All right, we don't need to be in a rush when we're dealing with this issue, because we're dealing with Africans issue and it's important. Even though I'm going to make sure I try to run within the time. I have a lot of things to present, but I'm going to try. All right, the initiator of this program, who is the person of Gospel Paragon, actually talked about the fact that we lack practical education that is meant to produce independent graduates for industry. And then secondly, he said that graduates venture into business, okay, without risk management acumen due to lack of proper education for industry. Okay, and then thirdly, he talks about misunderstanding of education in this era. All right, so these are 3 of his concerns, and I tried as much as I can to make sure that all of the 100 and something slides that I prepared, I try to make sure that they are encapsulated in just these 3 things that the initiator have talked about. All right, let's go to the roadmap to securing the future of Africa through education. Now, if you watch carefully, you discover that, beneath, I put the word educo. If you've ever checked up the word educo, it's a Latin word which means to draw from within. And I tell you, education in Africa has not attained this definition, to draw from within. And that's part of what we're going to be talking about today. So educo, key to future Africa, we all should want. Educo is the key to future Africa we all should want. Why did I say we all should want? Because it's from my observation, from my understanding, I don't think we all need this educo in Africa. And that's why things have remained the way they are till date. So we're going to be seeing more of these as we proceed. Now, if you watch again, you can see that towards the right, you see that, the future there, I put the word prospect. So what is the prospects? What is the educational prospects for Africa? What's the development prospects for Africa? It's very important that we talk about this. There are 8 topics that I have fashioned for this particular presentation, 8 topics of concern. And I'm going to run through them quickly, so you get to know while we're running to each of them and give a details of each of them. The first is, who are we as Africans? That's number 1. Okay, number 2 is the African educational revolution, from traditional training to formal education. The African educational evolution from traditional training to formal what? Education. Now, what they're trying to say in a sense is that we had a formal education that was introduced by the white men, okay? But we had a traditional education that, the education that was fashioned according to our culture, our background, our context as a people before the white man came. So we're going to get details of this as we proceed. I'm going to be a little bit in a hurry because I want to make sure I run through this course. That's what the video is. They can always listen to it. All right. And the next talks about the effects of colonialism. Effects of colonialism on Africa's education and industry. That's the third one. And the fourth is educational system of other countries. We're going to be looking at the United States, we look at the United Kingdom, I'll look at China, because these people tend to be the leading, continents and nations in the world today, even though they are not one bit better than us, but yet they are leading. And why are they leading? Those are part of the things we are going to be finding out today. The fifth is, talking about African Union, ECOWAS, and then UNESCO. UNESCO is actually an arm of United Nations that is concerned about education and culture. Education and culture. So we're also going to be looking at these three different, organizations and what they have to say about education. And then ultimately, to what extent has this been implemented? Because I'm beginning to get concerned about the role of AU and other unions in the four, aspects of Africa. What role are they really playing beyond the templates that we have? We're going to be looking at that as well. And the sixth one is the role of political leadership, in educational development. Very important. And then the seventh one is the need for CPD, which is continuous professional development. This tends to be one of the first suggested alternatives while our educational system is still in a dilapidated state. We'll be talking about CPD as one of the ways, to move on individually while we expect that the educational system is revamped. And the eighth is education and the way forward for Africa. So right now, I am rest assured that you already have captured the topics that we are going to be discussing this evening. All right, so I go straight to the first one. Who are we as Africans? The focus is this. Our focus is geographic region, resources, and genetics to race. If you don't know your history, then you are more like a man, on a path that leads to no destination. And that's why we have to begin from here. We cannot talk about our educational system and what has gone wrong without finding, first of all, our identity. All right. And on towards the right, you can see I said something about our identity, the beginning of true independence. Do we truly know who we are? I'm asking this question. It doesn't matter how much knowledge we have. The question is, do we truly know who we are? What that means is, do we truly believe in who we have been made? And how are we playing out this belief that we have about ourselves? We're going to be finding this out. So check out more details in the next slide. All right. So here we'll be looking at, the various regions that makes up Africa. I'm not going to waste much time on this. Okay, the various regions that makes up Africa. And we have about 8 regions that makes up Africa. All right. Like I said, our focus will be on geography, that is region, resources, and then genetics. So as we get to these regions, we look at the resources that they have. Okay, and then we also look at issues on genetics. All right, the first, all right, here is just about me. I'm proudly African. That's why I put this here. I am not a white man. I'm an African. You can see that I actually dressed in this manner today because I want you to know that I am an African man and I dress like an African man. Okay, all right. So let's move on. The first region in Africa that we want to talk about is the Sahara region. Okay, which is referred to as the largest desert in the world, filling nearly all of northern Africa. Sahara is the largest desert in the world, filling nearly all of northern Africa. And you can see the countries that are around this region. The countries that are around this region, I wouldn't be mentioning them because of time, but I'll quickly take you to the resources, okay, that you can find around the Sahara. Okay, the North Africa has vast oil and natural gas deposits, nuclear oil, okay, and then coltan, that's a resource for making cell phones and chips. Then they also have gold and copper and lots more. Why do I have to cite the resources, while I talk about these regions? The reason is this. The reason I have to cite the resources while I talk about the regions is the fact that our resources that we have are meant to be explored by us and developed by us. If Africa cannot explore its resources and harness its resources and make good economic use of its resources, then Africa has not attained its potentials. Yeah, this is my concern, I must tell you. All right, so let's go straight to the second one. All right, which talks about the Sahel. All right, the Sahel is another region, okay? And you can see the Sahel is a part of Africa. Commonly, the Sahel stretches from Senegal, okay, on the Atlantic coast, okay, through parts of Mauritania. And then you can see other countries that are around this region. And I'm concerned now about the resources you can have or find around the Sahel. You have, the Sahel is one of the richest region in the world in terms of natural resources, including oil, gold, and uranium. Now, the question I want to ask is this: we have all these resources, and Africa is still seen as an underdeveloped continent. The question is why? Look at what I said. Yet, one of the poorest and most environmentally degraded in the world, the Sahel, is one of the poorest and the most environmentally degraded in the world. Yet, they have all these resources. What is wrong with Africa? The third one is the Ethiopian Highlands. Okay, the Ethiopian Highlands, as I said there, the Ethiopian Highlands is a rugged mass of mountain in Ethiopia. Is located in the Horn of East Africa. It's located in the Horn of East Africa, and then it is bordered by Eritrea to the north and all of that. You can check that out while I talk about the resources. Okay, the Ethiopian Highlands have also significant sources of some important, transboundary rivers, the Blue Nile. Okay, a wide variety of flora and fauna, that is plant and animal lives that are rich in biodiversity. If we have these resources, we need to be proud of ourselves. We need to be able to galvanize these resources. We need to harness them and be able to chart a way for Africa. The fourth is the savannah. The savannah. What's the location of savannah? The African savannah is located between latitude 15 degree north and 30 degrees south, and longitude 150 wide, and then 40-degree west. That is 150 west, 40-degree west. Okay, it takes up about half of the continent. That is about 5 million square miles. That is talking about the vast expanse, that is the space of the savannah. And the savannah has resources like water, okay, nutrients rich soil, livestock, wood, and others. So savannah also have their own resources. And then the fifth is the Swahili Coast. The Swahili Coast is, have this country surrounding. You can check on the map and see the countries that surrounds the Swahili Coast. Okay, the Swahili is said to have mangroves, seafoods, woods, and all of this. I'm just trying to tell you a little bit of who we are, where we are located, and the resources we have. We'll go into the main topic as we proceed. Okay, the fifth is the rainforest. The rainforest, that is the vast African rainforest, stretches across much of the Central African continents. Okay, Central African continent, and then you can see the countries around the rainforest. What are the resources? You can find rubber, gum, waxes. Okay, you can find flavorings and dyes, grains, fruits, plants, etc. These are the resources you can find in the rainforest. And then the next is the African Great Lakes. The African Great Lakes, talks about the four countries that makes up the African Great Lakes are Democratic Republic of Congo, Burundi, Rwanda, and Uganda. And then the resources you have there are minerals such as copper, iron, gold, limestone, and salt. So every part of Africa has great resources. And the next is the Southern Africa. I think that's the last. And you can see the resources we have. Of course, the South Africa is found at the bottom of the African map. Okay. And then the resources you have there are minerals, diamonds, gold, iron, and platinum, manganese. You have also chromium, copper. You have uranium, silver. You have beryllium, and then you have titanium. These are numerous resources that you can find in this area. Now, I have been able to take you through a journey of identifying what the identity of Africa is from the 8 regions of Africa. I think this is very interesting. Now, I'm taking you right now. I've talked about geography. I've talked about resources. Remember, I said 3 things we're going to be talking about are geography, resources, genetics, stroke race. Okay? So here we're asking again, who are we as Africans? I'll take you to what, Dr. Spencer Wells said. Okay? We all came from one stock. We all came from one stock. We are of one descent. We are of one bloodline, Dr. Spencer Wells said. What does that mean? What it means is that there is no difference between the white man and the black man when it comes to genetics. Why? Because we came from one stock. According to Dr. Spencer, where he says we came from one man for about 60,000 years ago. We came from one man, according to Dr. Spencer Wells. But the time is not my concern here. The concern is the fact that we all were given birth to by one man. What does that mean? We came from one lineage. And there is no reason the white man should claim superiority over the black man. And there's no reason the black man should allow complexities that produces inferiority in him to remain. Because we all came from one stock. And then we all are capable of doing great things and even greater things. That's what it means. Dr. Spencer Wells, on the fact of old-fashioned concepts of race, explains, genetic evidence shows all humans are 99.9% identical. Can you see that? Spencer Wells says that, genetic evidence shows that all humans are 99.9% identical and do not fall neatly into categories some people call race. What does that mean? It means that we are not trapped in these racial discriminations. We are not trapped in these racial differences. We are one. That's what it means. And then he went further to tell us that the skin color and our hair texture does not make us different. Okay? He traced it to a single ancestor. That is, we are coming from one ancestor. And I agree totally to this. So what does that mean? You being a black man does not make your heart black. You being a black man does not make your brain black. In fact, you must know that this topic is a very controversial one, because this is where the growth and development of Africa is hanging. Growth and development of Africa is hanging right here. And we've got to do justice to this if we must move on as Africans. Not what Dr. Spencer Wells said. We all came from one stock. The genetic evidence shows all humans are 99.9%. He doesn't just want to take 100%. But what does that mean? It means that we are 100% the same genetically. So we have the same aesthetics, coded inborn aesthetics, potential aesthetics in us that needs to be developed to become all that we are supposed to become as Africans. All right. So to give you details or a breakdown on Dr. Spencer Wells, I came over to the slide still on genetics and race. Dr. Spencer Wells on all humans, are related. What does he say? He say all humans are from one stock, one bloodline, one descent, 99% identical. Human differences are skin color and hair texture. Do you know what that means? What it means is that your skin color does not change your faculty. Your hair texture cannot change your faculty. Your hair texture and your skin color cannot define your faculty. That is your ability for inventions, for witty inventions. Your color cannot in any way define what your faculty should look like. So what is inside is called innate ability. It is so great that color cannot submerge it. Remember what Martin Luther said. He said, we cannot be described by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. All right. Okay, so Dr. Spencer went on to talk about environmental impact, impacting skin color and hair texture. So in his view, he was saying that our environmental conditions actually determines how we look on the outward, but it has no business with how we look on the inward, because humans are actually adaptable to different environmental conditions. This was Spencer Wells' views on this. All right. So what is it trying to say? Skin color and hair texture, accounts less. It accounts less, which means it does not determine, how intelligent, how inventive, how brilliant you should be. No, it should not define that. And that's what I'm here to do, to talk to Africans about. That we cannot accept to be less. It's not possible. We must equate ourselves rightly. We must put ourselves where we ought to be, because we all were created by the same God. And for no reason should we be any less or feel any less a human. All right. So look at what I said, Chidiben. My name is Chidiben. I said Africans are not lesser human beings. Neither are they lesser in faculties. Your faculty has to do with your capacity to invent, your ability to reason and do creative things and bring about great inventions, bring about scientific movements, engineering movements, and all the rest. That's what it means. That's what the faculty is all about. Okay, so the concept of race as a way of discriminating against Africans is totally wrong, and we are saying that this is absolutely wrong and it's unacceptable. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. So now you understand that there's nothing that makes us different from the white man except for our skin color and hair texture. And but that has nothing to do with our faculties. It has nothing to do. So you cannot tamper with our faculties even one bit. Take note of that. So I take you to the number 2 topic, the African educational evolution from traditional training to formal. You can see how concentrated I am because this topic is one of those controversial ones that you just can't afford to miss, but just to listen and to follow it and to begin to make a change from where you are. I'm one of those persons that believes that Africa is going to have a revamp. Definitely. Definitely. All right. Okay, so looking at the African educational, the Africans had a system of education before the white man came. But when the white man came, the white man introduced his own system of education. And we're going to tell you what this system of education actually did to the African man. And that has not been corrected up to now. And that's my problem. If we claim to have had independence, why have we not corrected it? So we're going to look at that. All right. So from the left, talking about, an information gathered from Botswana. Okay. All right. Botswana is actually, one of the African countries. Okay. And this information was actually gathered from one of the institutions, from Botswana. Okay. So Botswana is actually a landlocked country in Southern Africa. It has a landscape defined by the Kalahari Desert and then the Okavanga Delta, which becomes, a lush. It's called a lush that is excessive animal habitat during seasonal floods. So you just get to know that we are getting these details, from Botswana. Okay, and then the person that is actually that is a Dama Moswenyane, okay, of Department of Adult Education. That's the person that's actually in charge of these details, this history, these historical, details that we gathered to be able to make this presentation. Okay, he's from the Department of Adult Education, University of Botswana. All right, so that's where we got this information from, and this was published, July 18, 2013. So let's get the details as we proceed. All right, still on the African educational evolution from traditional training to formal education. All right, what the study told us? It told us about the approaches used by Africans before the white man came. Okay, in course of examining how Africans actually went about their educational pursuits, okay, we're able to get these details. Okay, and they're telling us that the approaches used by the African man actually employed knowledge, skill, and attitude. And you know that these three things mentioned are actually the factors that makes for competence for industry. That is, if you must be said to have competence for industry, then these three things must be at work. So, and research is telling us that our African approach to education actually had these three different, factors that makes for competence. That it had three of them, embedded in one. So, which means we actually had a very, good basis for education. As at that time, remember, even the European man had a period of also advancement from one level to another. So there was nothing wrong in we being at the level we were before the white man met us. So we're trying to let you know that the approaches used for education by Africans actually had knowledge, skills, and attitude, together in this process. So to buttress on this, we're going to be looking at the distinctive era of Africa's education for her members before colonialism. Okay, that we're going to look at various eras of education. It's called Epoch of Africa's education. Okay, for her members, that is for people of Africa. That's what we're trying to talk about. So if you go to the next slide, just like we have here, okay, first of all, from the left, look at the fact that Africans were nomadic, okay, or peripatetic. Okay, that is, they were people who were virtually moving on foot. Okay, because of course you should know that there was no mobility as at that time, and this was by Vanka 1995. All right. Okay, so now from the central point of this, let's look at what actually the education looked like. Interaction with the physical and spiritual milieu, that is, interaction with the physical and spiritual environment or surrounding, was how Africans began education. And you may think that that is actually obsolete or whatever, but the truth is that there can't be science and there cannot be engineering without relating with the environment. There cannot be sciences, there cannot be invention without a relationship with the environment. So Africans actually started on a good ground. That's what I'm trying to say. They began with physical and what? Spiritual relationship interaction with their what? With their environment. Okay. And research tells us on the left, okay, about survival skills in designing tools used for agro practices and also rearing of cattle. And then also for fighting. That is talking about amongst Africans now, where a particular tribe tries to conquer, what they call conquest, fight and conquer another part of the black race. You say they were able to design tools that they use for industrial practices, which was of course agro, and you know that agro was the first industrial phase as long as industry is concerned. So Africans were also there, during their time. So they were able to design tools that they use for their industrial practice. Can I say right now? Okay, and then when you come to the right side, we talk about communities communicating with ancestors. That is, and that is deities. Okay, the spirit of ancestors were thought to be intermediaries between God and humankind. So Africans learn how to worship, their kind of gods as at that time. Okay, and Richard says they were actually communicating through the ancestors. They communicate to their gods through the ancestors. So that was also a form of exposure for Africans, but that's the spiritual perspective of it. So from the physical perspective, they were able to design tools and they carry out their industrial activities. And the spiritual perspective, they were able to communicate to their deities, okay, as at that time. So they had their kind of worship as at that time. All right. So let's look at basic necessities, for these industrial activities was actually for food, water and shelter. So they did all of this to be able to get food, to get water, and to get shelter. And of course, there is no human that can exist without these basic necessities. So these practices carried out by Africans were actually to be able to cater for their basic necessities. All right. Now, if you go to the next slide, according to Vanguard, talks about wandering in the bush enabled members of African societies to know their immediate surroundings, such as this means knowledge, skills pertaining to resource management, was unequivocally obligatory. So he was saying that it was like an obligation while they moved about to be able to relate to their immediate environment. Like I said, you cannot have sciences, you cannot have engineering without relating with the environment. That's why when you talk about sciences, you will always hear about things like experimentations, observations, and all of that. So Africans were actually doing this during their time. That's what Banker was trying to say, 1995. While they wandered, they were actually interacting with the environment and they were actually carrying out some findings. Okay? And so what did they have within this environment? They had river systems, they had hills and forests. Okay? The type of flora, and fauna. That is, they had their type of, animal life and plant life. Flora means plant life and fauna means animal life. So they had these things and they were able to explore these things. They were able to interact with these things. They were able to make findings also from these things. So what is this trying to tell us? We already had a system of education during, the time before the coming of the colonial masters. All right. So if you check down, Momoni, cited by Coleman, 1976, said education is everything that prepares the young people for their integration in a given specific society with the aim of perpetuating the established values and norms of such society or transforming and changing such values and norms. What this thing is trying to say is that for us to talk about values and norms, we must be educated. That's what this man was saying, Koma was saying. Koma is saying that education helps us to be able to have our values and our norms instilled in us. And then as time goes on, we're going to have changes. Human beings are naturally given to adaptation. So there is no way our values were going to remain as archaic as they were, from the beginning, but there was going to be that continuous adapting, transformation, modification of our values and our norms, but according to our own setting. That's what this, Koma was saying. But you know what? There was a cut off along the line by the white man. That's what this is simply trying to say. There's so much I'm going to discuss. I don't know. I'm just going to try to see how we can meet up with this. If you go to the next slide, here I said, not that the knowledge that Africans had was scientific and intricate as any other from other parts of the world. Remember, the British or the United Kingdom or Americans they were not born with development. They actually developed. Okay, they were not born with development. Of course, you know that if the British colonized the Americans, they should have known that there was a time when the Americans themselves needed development. Even the British were colonized by the Roman missionaries. Okay, so what is this trying to tell us? Trying to tell us that just as we were scientific in our own ways, so they were scientific in their own ways. So the question is, what's happened later on? Let's look at what Emeagwali 2006 says, what it posits about Africans. He said, while interacting with the environment and transforming various raw materials over time, arrived at various hypotheses about nature, the natural world, and society. Now, can you dispute this? No. Look at today. We even have the people you call the herbalists who make what they call traditional medicines. And this medicines actually works. But if the leadership is able to capture these and ensure that we do proper standardizations, proper authentications, for these medicines, I tell you, the people you call herbalists will be great, medical practitioners. But now the white man tells us they have orthodox medicine, okay, and then they see us as traditional medicine. So from time to time, they keep trying to tell us how inferior we are because we have refused to build on ours. And I can tell you, hypothesis as Emeagwali said, 2006, is actually correct because at various levels of development and advancement, these things were in place and cannot be disputed. All right. And what did he say in regards to this? He talked about the fabrication of metallic tools and implements, textile production, traditional medicine, and food processing. All of these were actually obtainable in Africa. All of these were obtainable in Africa. And as noted by Koma, 1976, knowledge was continually modified and innovations renewed. Who told you that Africans were not going to continuously modify our system of education, our system of acquisition of knowledge and skills up to date? We would have done that. But this cutting short of our educational advancement is one of the problems, but not all of it. I'm going to get to how Africans are their problems. We're actually dealing with basically some of those root, fundamental issues that we may have experienced. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So absolutely no objection to the view of Emeagwali 2006. Chidi Ben, I am saying that our scientific adventure was, okay, and was meant to continue. Okay, the potential for exploration and exploit is in blacks likewise, just as it is in the whites. And we must agree to this. We must accept this. We must believe this. According to Pandey, as cited by Abose and Kanji, Morangi, 1995, the children were required to have knowledge, skill, and attitude of society. Can you see that? They were required to have knowledge, skills, and attitudes of society. Does that not tell you that Africans were actually on their way to continuous development? According to Vanguard, as cited by Abose and Kanji Moranga, 1995, it says knowledge, customs, and laws through tribal institutions were passed on to the young by the elders using proverbs and mites, which were told with care and repetition. Of course, the truth is this: we're not going to remain as just telling proverbs and mites. Remember, we already began making some implements, manually. So we're actually going to develop into whatever is called today, whether it's digital, mechanical, or whatever, we would have developed into that as well. Do you understand that? So Africans has all it takes, not hard, has all it takes. And that's why there is a call for a revamp of the core, which is the educational system, to be able to take us to where we ought to. Let me just move quickly, to the next. I don't want to, waste time on the other. All right. So as stated by Nyerere 1961, though pre-colonial Africa did not have schools in the modern sense. What does it mean? Did not have the formal setting of education. Okay, this did not mean that young people and children were not educated. Of course, we're told that the elderly ones educated the younger ones. So what happened? You had a sitting arrangement where the elderly ones began to educate in proverbs, in mites to the young ones, and they were learning about their tradition, learn about their educational system, about their culture, learn about their environment. And of course, what else do we call education if not that? Except for the fact that it wasn't formal. Definitely it was going to be formal if the white man never brought his obtrusion in the process. All right. For instance, between 1050 and 1200 BC, changes took place in England and Western Europe generally, which opened the new era in intellectual life and education. What does this tell you now? This is telling you that even the Western people also had development. They had advancement. They had modification of processes. That is what this is trying to tell us. Maybe you don't know. That's what this is trying to point out to us. This is trying to tell us that these people also had what? Their own what? Advancement and development. I just have to bring it down so I can get out the details there. Okay. It proved that all races developed from one point to another. Even the Western Europe generally, which had a development which generally opened a new era in intellectual life and education. So what does that tell us? It tells us that Africa was in process and was also going to modify to the point that we were supposed to be today, that we are now yet. All right. So in the next slide, still under that topic, the evolution, I'll be talking about the white centrism. Okay, what you may want to call the Eurocentrism. Okay, I call it the white centrism. I want to capture the North Americas and then the Europeans because they all had their colonial poison on Africans. So I have to use the white, centrism. All right. So now underneath by the left, you see that we're talking about the Africa's approach prior colonialism, studied by folktales, folklores, that's word of mouth and the use of symbols. So we already had a way and a means of education, before the white man came. But let's look at what happens towards the right. Africa's approach influenced by colonialism. Now, the white man brought the formal classroom study, the sophisticated, what I call the gnarled or the twisted system. That is, now there's nothing wrong in having formal education, but the problem is the kind of formal education that the white man brought to us. The question is, why is the white man having formal education in this place and they're able to do all the inventions that they are doing? That's the question. So the problem is not the formal education. The problem here is the twisted formal education that the white man brought to us. And that's why there is a call to change. If you check below that slide, you see there's a call to change, a call for change in our system of education, a call for fizzling away the seeming light but the real obstacle of rhetorics rather than industry-focused education. What we need in Africa is industry-focused education. That's what we need in Africa. What Africa needs is industry-focused education, not rhetorics, not botanical names, not formulas that are not in existence in the real world. Okay, not etymological words, root meanings that makes no sense in the real world. What we need are those skills and knowledges that will help us to be able to practice industry and also be able to associate rightly, outside skill. That's what we need. All right, so that's what we're talking about. So you can see that going through the evolution of our educational system, you could see that we had a system of study which was by folklore and folk tales, stories being told at home by elderly ones, by parents to children. We had all of this. We interacted with our environment. So we had scientific explorations, we had inventions at least of implements used, in agro practice. We had all of these things. And there was a sure proof that they were going to advance. Just like the white man also had advancement in his own case. So let's go to the third topic, which is effects of colonialism on African education and industry. I wouldn't want to waste time taking the next, the one below. Let me just go to the next slide. Let's talk about the effect of colonialism on Africa's education. All right. Now, if you go to the next slide, you see we have rhetorics versus practicality. Now, the white man sold rhetorics to us through what is called obtrusion. The African history on educational transformation tells us that the white man actually imposed the twisted system of education on Africans, which is what is called the formal system or the classroom kind of education. And that was the kind of a system that kept us abstract. Look at what I have there. I said, under the obtrusion, we have rhetorics, okay? That is an institution that is twisted, that does not allow the black man to be able to have, a practical contact with the reality, more like we study in abstract. And what do you have there? We study about chemical elements, we study about formulas, we study about botanical names. What do I mean by that? For instance, somebody is busy studying about botanical names in school, and somebody is doing practical farming. The question is, what is the essence of these botanical names when somebody is already doing practical farming and is able to carry out production and industry is working? That's why the supposed position of the institution is supposed to be such that brings us to practicality, where we have productions, where we have manufacturing, where we have agro practices, where our primary sectors are working. There are extractions of all manner of minerals we have. There is the conversion of these raw materials, into finished products, and then every industry is working. Who told you that the African man cannot survive without a white man? I think that is just a sold mentality that we bought and that we're refusing to give back to those who sold it to us. And I think it's time for us to make a change. We must move from rhetorics to practicality. Africans must move from rhetorics to practicality. Now, still under this, this topic, the effects of colonialism on Africa's education and industry, we're looking at what I refer to as the underdeveloped Africa. Today the white man has come with the terminology. And what's the terminology? Developed nations and the underdeveloped nations. And every time they are coming to Africa, third world nation, they call us third world nation. Do you know what this means? This actually the class consciousness. The white man, introduced the class consciousness. He made himself superior and made you inferior. And we keep accepting that we are inferior. And that's what we want to look at. How did the white man underdevelop Africa? I'm not going to take all of this because there are lots of citations we're supposed to make here, but I'm just going to take a few of it, then I'll run to other things. All right. The underdevelopment of Africa by the whites is centered on modeling. Please get this right. Modeling. What is modeling? Modeling is what I call the twisted educational system that the white man introduced to us. A system of studying abstract things rather than studying realities and practicalities. That was the major way the white man underdeveloped. That's why since the white man left Africa, legally, formally, as a slave master, since he left Africa, we are still groping in darkness. Why? Because the white man sold rhetorics to us. The white man sold abstracts to us. Ask this question: why do Africans need to travel to Europe, to any of the Western world, to go and study, even after graduation in Africa? Have you ever asked that question? It means something is wrong with the educational system. Just like Africans travel abroad to go for medical treatment, what is happening to our hospitals? What is happening to our medical practitioners? What is the essence of studying medicine? What is the essence of being a medical practitioner? What's the essence of having general hospitals and teaching hospitals and having clinics established by, in quote, medical practitioners and Africans are still traveling abroad to go for medical treatment. It tells you that something is definitely wrong with our educational system. And that system was sold to you and I by the white man. So the major anchor of the effects of colonialism on Africa's education and industry is the modeling system, and we must do away with it. Negatively implies sophistication of our educational system, using irrelevant formulas and botanical names, including etymological exaggerations, to deepen our worrisome confusion, keeping intelligence quotient high, but in a complex diversion far from the reality of industry. We are far from the reality of industry in Africa. Else, all the natural resources we have in Africa, we are supposed to be exploring and tapping into them and doing great things with these natural resources. How come the African man is coming to set up what is called corporation here in Africa? Why do they come to set up such corporations in the name of globalization in Africa? Because they know that we have so much resources that we do not know the values. The African man has so much values, but he's ignorant of it. And this is all we need to get out of. Now, let me take you to the second slide on the underdeveloped Africa. The African continent experienced its own form of training and learning before it was colonized. The training system of Africans, such as the traditional schools, did exist. These schools did exist. But what happens? The family unit served as an important structure for knowledge provision and acquisition. And I tell you, there's no way we're going to remain that way. And I'm going to tell you, why? Deposited in every human is a quest for finding out new things. So the African man definitely, as he began interacting with the environment, would have had no option other than to keep advancing, to keep searching, to keep finding, and to keep discovering. So the text slide says, Africa's training facilitates an approach, and Africa's training facilities an approach to learning got undermined as a result of importation and imposition of knowledge system from the colonial powers. You see, they undermine our facilities. Remember, we said we're learning with symbols during our time. During that time, we learned with symbols. We learned, via word of mouth, telling myths and stories and all of that. We were actually learning, and we're definitely going to advance, just as the white man advanced. The white man's arrangement viewed Africans as having little or no knowledge of their own. Can you see that? The imposition, the obtrusion made Africans look as though we don't have a decision for anything. And this is what we need to change. I don't want to waste much of your time. Let me just run. There's so much, okay? I'm moving to the next two slides. The white man's influence promoted the capitalism system, which induced in the attitude of human inequality and domination of the weak by the strong. Can't you see today that our politicians, let me use our politicians as an example. Can't you see that our politicians today are capitalist in nature? Have you not seen that? What do I mean? They like to dominate. Do you know the capitalist ideology is the monopoly ideology, where one man wants to monopolize, one man wants to dominate. The same thing is happening in our political sector. The same thing is happening in our economic sector, where you have import captains of industry who want to monopolize the system because of what? Because of the mindset of getting rich and becoming larger than life, making monies that they can't even use, but making sure that they put every other person out of business. This was sold to us by the white man, and we need to do away with it. And that's what this means. Domination of the weak by the strong. And I have explanations for you on that. What does it say? The rugged and the dogged politicians, the mafia business captains, and then the shrewd academics. Can't you see today that we have professional bodies headed by import academics who do not want other professionals to grow? This is the problem sold to us by the white man, and we need to deal with it. I don't have so much time. My presentation is supposed to take like 3-4 days presentation because this is so loaded. But I'm going to try as much as I can to see how we can build up. So I'm not going to take this. I'm going to move on to some very key issues and all of that. Here, I listed the 4 facets of Africa, okay, and the countries you have under the various unions in Africa. The first, you have the East African Community, and you have about 20 countries under East African Community. And then under the North Africa, you have Arab, Maghreb Union. I have about 7 countries under that. And then the Economic Community of West Africa, which is ECOWAS, which is where I belong. You have about 14 countries underneath. And then the Southern Africa, you have about 5 countries. On the way, you have the Custom Union. Okay, that's the Southern African Custom Union. All right, I wouldn't want to wait, but I just wanted to enlist this so that peradventure, as you're getting this on the screen, you may want to emphasize that to get to know the various faces of Africa and the countries and where they belong. Okay, still on underdeveloped Africa. Okay, here we have an argument that says that Africa's educational history has no documented evidence. There's no doubt about that. There's no problems with that. But it was definitely going to have documented. It was definitely going to be documented with time. Okay, definitely it was going to be documented. Then we know that then there was no room for documentation. But there was story, word of mouth, stories were told. I know that as generations passes by, stories are told to generations, and generations will tell stories to generations, and to move on. So whether documented or not, the truth is that humans cannot survive without industry and development. That's the truth. So at that level where we were, we had a form of what? Education and development. Yes, according to Boateng 1985 says it is disadvantages Africa and then denies it an opportunity to be recognized in the global arena as ingenious or inventive. Let me say this. The question is this: do we need the white man's approval to chart our own history and ultimately prove our ingenuity? Now, the question is, if you didn't have documentation of your development process in the past, what is happening now? What is the job of AU? What is the job of ECOWAS? What is the job of all these African unions that we've talked about? What is the job of the East African community? What are their duties? We're talking about now, not yesterday. What we're talking about is now. Africa has independence now, and the question is, what are we doing to put ourselves in the global scene? That's the question that I'm asking. I'm not going to take much of this. Let me just take a question here. Next, it says, what now happened or happens since we are now on our own and seeming self-reliance? Do we still need approval from the white man? Is the same question I'm asking to the words of Boateng 1985. Do we still need approval from the white man? And the answer is no. As long as Europe dominates over Africa, there is no how the latter's education system can gain recognition. This is what Asante 1987 is saying. But I say no to this, and I ask you, I say, do we need recognition, or we need to first create internal values that creates an identity for us likewise, showcasing our emancipation to the white man? The question is, do you need emancipation from human? No, we need emancipation from self. Africans need self-emancipation. Right now, we're experiencing internal capitalism. We're experiencing internal colonialism by our own self. And I'm making a call to Africans to get self-emancipated. And the best way to do it is mental revolution. And the bedrock to that is to restructure and to refashion our educational system so that we can begin to learn right and not learn in ignorance, just like the white man has given to us. I wouldn't have time to read all of this, but I believe I've given you clues based on this. So let me move on. You've got already a clue to the underdeveloped Africa. So I'm going to run quickly to the next topic. There's so much to learn, but we don't have time. So let me run. Okay. Right. Let me talk about the implications for development in Africa. All right. The infiltration and presence of transnational corporations by foreigners and milking of our natural resources is another call for concern in Africa. Do you know that the white man comes here with a briefcase, with a portfolio, and then he begins to tap into our resources and decides what he pays to us? That's what Shell did. Oil was first discovered in Olebri in Nigeria, in Bayelsa State. But the agreement that was written was such that Shell would decide what they give to the federal government. Until today, we are still taking peanuts from foreigners. The question is, do Africans not have the brain to tap into their natural resources? Why would we as Nigerians, for whom our mainstay, our economic mainstay is oil, because we have refused to tap into the vast and numerous natural resources we have, why should we be exporting oil and not processing oil? That's the question I'm asking. Even when that is just the only concentration we have right now. You can see in Nigeria right now, our federal government is busy borrowing money from time to time. For me, that shows how incapacitated a government could be. Because if a businessman could make business and make profit, then a political government should be able to track causes to generate internally revenues that can sustain the country. Else, we are still moving like strangers, or we're still moving like slaves, like the white man sees us. But I want to tell you, we're not slaves, and we're not meant to be slaves. Let me give you an example. For example, in Botswana, the mining giant company known as De Beers, in mining diamonds, has trained citizens in various areas such as geology, mining, engineering, and all of that. What they do, they train, they employ. But they are the people that have the larger resources. Why? Because they are the owners of the company. When would we begin to set up companies on our own resources? Remember, I've always said that for Africa to be endowed with so much natural resources means invariably that the Africans were endowed with so much human potentials to have contact or to relate with these resources, just as we began relating, in the pre-colonial era, so that we could maximize these resources and then become the world giant. And I'm telling you, Africans need to become the world giant in our time. Yeah. Do you know that it's an error for people from a coastal area to be taught by foreigners on how to fish and swim in their waters? What does it tell you? It says that it's an error for a strange man, for a foreign man, to refine your own oil and then sell back the oil to you, and then utilize the byproduct from the oil and sell back the product to you. It's an error. A man from the coastal area should be able to fish in the rivers that have been given to them by God, and then to be able to swim. It's an error for you to be taught how to swim by a foreigner. That's what we're saying. It's an error for a white man to explore our own natural resources in Africa and make us employees. It's an error. That's what I'm trying to say. It is a big error in Africa. So I'm taking you to the fourth one, which is the educational system of other countries and their peculiarities. I'm going to just quickly run, straight to it because I must finish before my time. Okay, I must finish before my time. All right. We're looking at our focus is United States, United Kingdom, and China. Why am I citing them? I'm not citing them because they are meant to be better than us, but I can tell you right now, they are producing better than we do, but they are not naturally better than us. But why am I pointing to them? Because whether by hook or crook they got there, they are having some models that tells you that the African man is supposed to have advanced to also replicate such that these people are having. And that's why I'm pointing to the educational system. So let's look at what the United States have. Prior to higher education, 12 years in primary and secondary school, just like we also do have here, okay? Then you have at age 6, they begin primary school, for about, I think, 5 or 6 years. Okay, for about 5 or 6 years, they begin a primary school, okay, and then that's a middle school or junior high school, okay, 1 to 3. All right, like when you say middle school or junior high, that's 1 to 3. Then you now get to 4 to 6. So they move from after primary to 6 years. They move to secondary. They have the middle, which is the junior high school, which is 1 to 3, and then they go to the other, which is 4 to 6. Okay, it's called the 12th grade. Okay, all right. Courses are commonly graded using percentage, which are converted into letter grades and all of that. Okay, these may go on to then they may go on to college or universities. That is the higher education. University is called higher education. I'm just trying to point you to what their system of education is. And this is similar to what we have in Africa too, but we're going to point out the difference as we proceed. So now at the university stage, which is bachelor degree in the United States, okay, 4 years, which runs for 4 years. So if someone's major is journalism, they will earn a bachelor, of arts in journalism, which is BA journalism. All right. Now, in the next slide tells us that the next verse says that they take number of courses in this field in order to meet the degree requirements of your major. All right. They take a number of courses that is from the first to second 100 level. Okay. And then at the third level, that is the 300 levels, they must major, at the beginning, of that third level. That's the most major in that journalism. They must have studied other supporting courses that can help them, to be able to make it while they get in the industry. But at the 300 level, it's expected that you must focus on journalism and make sure that you got the details of journalism. So that is actually explaining their curriculum of learning. That's an example of curriculum of learning, okay, for United States. All right. Then the next talks about the unique characteristics of the American higher education system. You can change your major, multiple times. What is telling us that, now what is it? This is a quest for finding where you belong. Do you know that every human has natural potentials and then passion? And if you don't study in the area of your potential, there's the likelihood that you're going to have problems, in the future. So in America, they give the space for students to switch as many times as possible as they want. What matters is that they must find the area where their potential can connect with the study they're doing, and so that they can, make it, tomorrow in industry. So here, emphasis is that students discover a different field that they excel in, or enjoy, and they can switch, and it's allowed in the United States. I don't know if that can really happen in Africa, as frequent as it happens in the United States. All right, characteristics of the United States higher education system. What does it say? It's a large lectures, to smaller. What they're saying here is that in the United States, they have a large class definitely, but subsequently they're able to have smaller groups. These are learning approaches. If you've done, communication, you understand what I mean. That apart from learning in a larger class, they also have a provision where these students can have smaller gatherings to be able to discuss on the same topic, and also have access to their lecturers. Lecturers give homeworks. They're able to, to communicate with their lecturers, via the virtual system. All of this is to ensure that these students are able to drive home what they have learned. Is this not a good system? I think this is a very good system that the United States have. So if you're wondering, why should the white man tend to be better in his exhibitions? It's because of the system that's bringing them out. All right. So I take you quickly to what the United States Department of Education says with regard to technology, for education. As this technology provides structural changes, significant improvements in productivity. Now you can see our institutions in Africa have a problem with facilities and technology of learning. But Americans have it. I don't want to take much time on it. You can even see digital learning tools is there, such as computers and all of that. Now you can see in Africa, we still have people who are even in higher institutions struggling, with digital what, operations. Why? Because we don't have these facilities in place that will help to mold our people. But the United States have it. So we're going to go straight quick to the United Kingdom. Okay, here, United Kingdom has their own structural system of education too. Okay, first, it says the primary education in the UK. All right. The law states that at age 5 to 16, such person must receive full-time free education, but in state schools. Okay, children leave primary schools at the age of 11. That's what they said. And our secondary education in the UK, age between 11 to 14. Broad range of 10 to 15 subjects is done, within this level. Okay, and then now, just at this secondary level, there's something I want to point out to you. They have about 16 courses they do, like we said, or 15 courses they do. But I want you to pick something here about the UK's educational system. In the secondary school, they do a course called Information and Communication Technology, and they do another course called Career Education and Guidance. Now, take note of these two courses, apart from every other course they do, history, geography, and all of that. But they do Information and Communication Technology, and they do Career Education. What does that tell you? Children at secondary level already understands what career is and will make the right career choices. Right here in Africa, I've seen graduates telling me the course I studied, I don't like it. I didn't know why I studied that course. You know why? Because our institutional arrangement is faulty and totally wrong. Okay? Then I ask the question, someone should tell me why a student from such institution will not be more advanced and exposed than one from Africa. Tell me. So you can see that our exposure determines where we go. And then when you go to the university in UK, prior to university, at the age of 16, 2 years advanced level course and exams is required for university entrance in the UK. Okay, that can be done. Students major on 3 to 4 courses during the A level at the second year, such that they intend to major on the university. That is, they major in these courses, with regards to what they want to do in the university. See, a good preparation for them, okay, before they eventually get into university. All right. So undergraduate degree, the first 3 years, that's, for example, Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Engineering, and the Bachelor of Sciences. Okay, the first 3 years, okay, they have the undergraduate degree. So UK actually uses 3 years to have either Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Engineering, or Bachelor of Sciences. 3 years. Now we spend as much as 5 years here for people who are in 6, even 7 years for who are in sciences here, and yet we come out and we get confused. Don't you think our system is wrong? Don't you think that? Now look at what we have here. Emphasis. Emphasis says students at university or college. Students are at university or college because they want to be learning more about a subject or job they really enjoy. Did you hear that? In UK, students go to the university because they want to go and learn about a job that they want to do for the rest of their life. That's what that means. They want to go and learn about a job that they have passion for. But here, we are just going to school. That's why you see somebody, let me just go to school and just have certificate. But in UK, the people are going to school so that they can come out and work. And that's why I said education that cannot produce industry competence is no education. Education that cannot produce somebody that has good morals and ethics is no education. That's what we're suffering in Africa. The third example I wanted to get from China quickly. 3 years of kindergarten in China. It actually said that China's education is a bit strenuous because I believe because they want to get some debts. Okay, 5 or 6 years of primary school, 3 to 6 years of middle school, several years of higher education. 5 to 6 years. You can see it from here. Okay, so you can take note of that yourself. Of course, technology for learning. The main benefit of using technology in the classroom is interactive lessons that engage students, foster in-depth learning, and encourage collaboration. Technology in the classroom also provides benefits for teachers as is saving time for creating lesson plans and on. So now when you have quality technologies that are compatible with current industry technologies, the teacher does not struggle to teach, the student does not struggle to what? To learn. I can tell you, if you go into the lab to carry out a particular experiment, what happens? You can never forget that because it was practically done. This is what our institution in Africa should look like. So you can see that US, UK, China, of course, the leading economies in the world. You can now see why they are the leading economy. It is not a gift. It is a work. We need to take note of this. It's a work. All right? This is what? This tonight. All right. My time is already gone. Okay, my time is not up, right? Okay, quickly. So let me take you quickly. I still have 20 minutes and I promise I'm going to be done with this. I'm just going to run through. Okay, now let's look at the role of African Union, Economic Community of West Africa, and UNESCO. I'm going to use African Union for ECOWAS, okay, and also UNESCO. The reason is that from my studies, 3 of them actually has similar templates for educational development. So the problem is not the template. The problem is the fact that we don't have leaders to implement these templates. So I'm going to quickly use African Union. Remember, ECOWAS, of course, is connected to African Union, just like East African Community is also connected to African Union and all of that. So ECOWAS template is actually something very close to what African Union template is. And you can see that from our template. Our template actually tells that we have a roadmap, but there is no implementation. African Union Education Mission focuses on revitalizing quality education responsive to the needs of Africa. Responsive to the needs of Africa means that education that will enable us to tap into our own natural resources and advance in Africa and place ourselves in a global scene, but it's nowhere to be found. Taking into account Africa's aspiration and capacity, human and material resources wise. You see that? Human and material resources wise. 3, provide systems that produce Africans with attitude, values, knowledge, and skills. I want to ask us back, where are the attitudes? Where are the values? Where are the knowledges? And where are the skills? AU's vision to provide a system that generates applied and new knowledge for two things. Africa's challenge, which means our education is supposed to tackle our challenge in Africa. Two, placing Africa within the core of global knowledge economy. See, today Africa is still called a third world nation, a third world continent. Countries in Africa are third world nations. Yet, the vision of AU, African Union, is to place Africa within the core of global knowledge economy. Can you see that? Where we will be producing knowledge that drives economy globally. That's what it means. But where is it working? The mission tends to be just on the template. Can you see that right? Development and harmonization of education policies and programs. Policies that would determine development for us. Spearhead the revitalization of education system. Revitalization means that they understand that the UK, the European man or the North American man actually sold to us a twisted educational system. But where is the revitalization? And begin to ask, right? Is it that the member states or the countries in Africa, they don't actually align themselves with the templates of ECOWAS, for us who are in the West Africa, or to the templates of African Union? That's the question I'm asking. Now, look at what it says here. Develop and manage continental education linked to regional and national levels, providing information for local and international users. Providing information for local and international users. And we're still dropping in darkness in Africa. I think there's a problem with Africans. So much to tell you. If you go to my template, it said there's so much here. All right. So transforming Africa into the global powerhouse of the future. Look at what they said. To deliver on its goal for inclusive and sustainable development. Then moves to a concrete manifestation of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism deals with two things: United Africa and Developed Africa. So, which means AU is looking at a United Africa and a Developed Africa. I'm still asking, where are the results of this? A principle of advocacy of the political union of indigenous inhabitants of Africa. Union of what? Of political union of indigenous inhabitants of Africa, where we'll have a union of the political, regions in Africa. Then the idea that people of African descent have common interests and should be unified. All right. Then the Renaissance birth, which is the revival of learning and culture. AU had a vision and a mission for the reviving of learning and our culture, and yet we seem to be grappling in darkness. Then there's a problem here. There's a problem that needs to be dealt with. There's a problem that needs to be dealt with. All right. So, and this was further expounded in the genesis of Agenda 2063. Okay, was the realization by African leaders, okay, to attain political independence for the continent. What does this mean? To be self-liberated. After that, we have gotten independence legally. They are now having a vision because they know that we need a mental revolution, and that they have a vision to see how we can be politically independent, where imperialism will no longer have a place, on the political leadership in Africa. But I'm still asking, what are they doing with regards to this? People like Julius Malema of South Africa, people like Professor Lumumba, have been at the forefront of this, talking about this, crusading about this, but it seems to no avail. The Agenda 2063, okay, of the Africa we want, talks about this. Renewed economic growth and social progress, people-centered development, gender equality, and youth empowerment. Okay, that is where there will be no gender discrimination, increased peace and reduction of conflicts, but there's terrorism everywhere in Africa. Okay, then in investment in areas such as agribusiness, infrastructure development, health and education, value addition in African commodities, value addition in our commodities. But till now, there is no space for that. Which means our products tend not to have value in the international scene. Because of what? Because we have not done what we ought to do. Unity of Africa, which makes it a global power to be reckoned with, and all of that. Okay, let me just end with this. Please, there's so much to say here. So tie this to the Economic of West Africans, Economic Committee of West African States, which is ECOWAS, also tied to UNESCO from the United States, for they are pushing educational, and cultural advancements from the international perspective, that which is UN, which is the global government, and we are pushing from AU, ECOWAS, East African Community, and all of that. Okay, so you can just take a clue from that. All right. Okay, so if that is settled, let me move quickly to the next step, because I have to finish before my 20 minutes elapses. All right, let me move quickly. There's no time. I wish this was during the daytime. All right, so I move straight now to the seventh, which is education and the way forward. What is the way forward for us in Africa education-wise? Emagwali 2006 says that Africa should embrace both exogenous and endogenous technological activities for its advancement. What that simply means, if I may explain, is the fact that we must look inward and we can also learn from what? From outside. What matters is that we are advancing and not losing our culture. That's what he was trying to say. Education, from a Latin word, means educo, which means to draw from within. The question is, are we drawing from within our students in Africa, or we're doing something else? Now you can take a look at what we have here. Focus is, what does education draw from within a man? Inherent capacity. If you go for education and you couldn't draw your potentials, you couldn't become an inventor, you couldn't become a scientist after education, then it means that you didn't get any education. You got a mere rhetorics. That's what we're trying to say here. All right. So education is supposed to draw from within the human potentials, which is inherent capacity for coming into being or expected to become. There's something human are expected to become. And education is supposed to help us to become these great, humans, that we are supposed to come. So, worthy of note, education is supposed to be total and not, partial. All right. So, the ideal faculty in the educational sector, what should it be? Our institution of learning should have 3 faculties: competent lecturers who have passion for learning, who have competence for learning, who have a call for teaching. Competence for teaching, passion for teaching, and a call for teaching. They must have trendy industry facilities. That is, must have current technologies that after that we have learned in school, when we go out, we can practicalize rather than going to learn again. Industry-related curricula that does not teach us rhetorics and abstracts, just like the obtrusion caused by the white man, but curricula that teaches us how to work. That is what we need in Africa. Okay, that's what we need in Africa. So let me run quickly to the next. All right. Now, this is an example of what happened in Nigeria recently, with NUC, that's the Nigerian University Commission. Okay, they broke mass communication into 7 degree programs. What does that mean? People who studied mass communication long ago actually studied model or twisted, course of study. That's what they did. So NUC is telling us now that somebody can go to study advertising, information and media studies, cinematography, broadcast. So I can go to school to study broadcasting for 4 years. Can't you imagine that? Is that not lovely? What does that tell you? What that tells you is that Africa needs to follow this pattern. Let us break this model, this twisted educational system that was given to us, and let us provide current technologies for learning, and that's going to do us a lot good. Institution of learning further, must be able to lead us to industry. Okay, if in any part of Africa we cannot realize the primary sector, the economic sector, and the tertiary sector of our industry in any country, then our educational system is a waste. I don't want to waste much time, please. You can ask me a question on the group, and I'm going to answer it after that. Okay, so education is meant to help us to build our inherent capacity or coming into being as expected. There's something we're expected to become, and education is supposed to help us to bring this out. That's what we're trying to say. All right, so there must be a connection between the institutional faculty and the human potential and industry. If these 3 nexus, if there's no nexus between these 3 various factors I've mentioned right now, then it means that we are actually wasting time educationally. And finally, finally, I don't have time. Finally, since we're still expecting our educational system to grow and to get better, I would advise everyone listening to me to go professional. That's what is called continuous professional development, CPD. And what it means is for you to be able to, develop yourself continually in that area that you have passion and ability for. So it's called continuous development of a person's professional and work life. Please, I will urge you to continuously develop it. There's so much to discuss here. You can see I just have to rush because of the time, okay? But you must engage in continuous professional development. And how to find this is that you can get a mentor. A mentor can help you. A coach can help you to develop through a process where you have passion and inherent capacity for. All right. You can go through also these diagram that I have here, which have been identifying and putting up a plan, learning activities, reflecting on your learning, apply your learning, and then share your learning. Continuously, you keep developing and you keep working and developing, working and developing. I must tell you, there's so much to discuss here, but I can go through also. I just have to leave you with this. Okay, let me flick through this so that it will be possible for you to capture it on the screen. Okay, even after now. All right, and then be able to do justice to this. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you to God's Power Operago, the initiator of this particular movement and this particular online or virtual conference that we're having. I want to thank you all who are listening or watching right now, and who also will be watching or listening subsequently. Thank you for having me. My name is Chidi Ben, or Chidike Ben, or if you like. I'm the Management Consultant, ECRD Professionals, which is called Effective Content Resources Development. And we are experts in occupational safety and health. We're experts in management, business, entrepreneurship, leadership, human resource management, and then career. This is what we do in Effective Consult here in Nigeria. Thank you for having me. I don't know if anybody may have any question. Where there is a question, then possibly we could ask so that I can attend to the question. Wow, it's been a very tough one, but I just had to run through to make sure. Don't forget, we are saying that the white man imposed his twisted educational system on us, whereas we had our educational system before they came, which was in consonance with our tradition and culture, and while we're advancing, technologically, scientifically, engineering-wise, and otherwise. But this obtrusion actually tampered with our advancement in education. And to date, we're still grappling with the white man's obtruded educational system. And according to some proponents, like they said, we need to embrace, an educational system that allows us to be able to practice industry in Africa. That's what we're saying. That's the whole essence of this presentation, But we have to go through these various historical places, and then we also have to point to AU and ECOWAS and all of them to let you know that there are templates in place. But why is it not working? Because the capitalist ideology, the domineering ideology that the white man sold to the black man, is still at work in his mind. He still believes that his heart is black, even when he's not supposed to think so. And we need a mental revolution in Africa, if you ask me. If there's anything we need in Africa, it's a mental revolution for our politicians, mental revolution for captains of industry, mental revolution for those, academics who dominate the professional institutions and don't allow it to go forward. We need a mental revolution for them, and we need a mental revolution for electorates in Africa as well. And then we need a total overhaul of our educational system if we must move forward. An education that teaches people to work, to do industry, just as it was in the pre-colonial era. Thank you for having me tonight. Where there is no question, the absence of any question, I think I may have to end the broadcast. You may just leave your questions in the group, and I'm going to attend to it, subsequently. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.